Today I would like to tell you something about social network analysis and how this can be done with ATLAS.ti. And I'm talking about the qualitative version of social network analysis. I'm using a project that originally was conducted by Willie McCather, and he was the keynote speaker at the last ATLAS conference in August 2015. And he does doing his PhD research already in 2005. So when he then worked with ATLAS, he didn't have certain functionalities, and he basically did the coding of his interviews. And originally for the entire study he had 100 interviews. He used a subset of that for the social network analysis, but it was lots and lots of data, and he used ATLAS.ti to code the narrative interviews, and then was actually transferring the coding via SPSS in Excel into a social network analysis program called Multinet. And I was always curious how actually this social network analysis could be also done in a qualitative sense, and ATLAS does have the network view function. And then when I discovered the study, we started to work together, and I want to show you what came out of that. And the context here is a social movement, black people struggling for power, and there are actually two groups that were fighting for black power. One was more grassroots group, and the other one was the black mayor with his more educated friends, and I will talk a bit more about that. But that's kind of the background of the study. Yeah, so here this image gives you a bit of an idea of what the context is. So now let's get started with what was done in ATLAS originally. The names and also organizations that are not now in this image were coded, that occurred in the dataset, and also the links, whether somebody was a friend or study colleague, political friend, and so on, and where did these people know each other from. And the codes that you see here needed to follow a certain naming convention in order then later to fit into Multinet. So the more I work with it in a qualitative sense, this naming convention actually started to change because it was no longer necessary. So this was the original coding, and this is a bit of the data set and how the coding actually looked like. So we have a data segment here where, here in this instance, a link to the organization was coded, Human Relations Commission, and the person who was interviewed was an organizational member. Here a person was related to this person, Harry Brown, and he was a political colleague and also a personal friend. So this is how the coding of the dataset looked like. Now, if we want to show these relations in the network view function, of course we have to translate the link codes into proper ATLAS relations. So just to show you what needs to be done in the next step. So we have an interview here with Henry March, and he is connected to a number of people. These are all these blue nodes, and I have included two data segments here in this network view. And you see that a data segment can be linked to a code, but this relation cannot be named. So what actually needs to be done is we need to translate the link here into then an ATLAS relation, and we can only link two codes to each other and two quotations to each other with a named relation. So Henry March actually is going to be a code, so we can actually have a named relation, and that link that's now here in the code will be turned into a named link, and then we can link the code to the actor code. And so in order to do that, I first set a filter here on my codes, because the coding system did not only contain the social network codes, it also contained some thematic codes, because the content of the interview was also coded. It was not just the link and the name and organizational codes. And the filter is necessary in order now to only import the codes that I'm interested in. So I added this primary document for Henry March into a network view, and then use the option to import all codes. So now we see all the organization and the person he is linked to and the type of links. And now the translation process has to start. So this is what needs to be done. We now need to bring in the quotations, and there's also an import option for the to bring in the quotation that belong to a particular code. So we need to do this for each code, and you see now that I have an actor code in here for Henry March, which is not used for coding because it's the entire interview, it's the case, but we needed to do the linking. So now we see Harry Brown is a personal friend, so this can actually be linked to as personal friend to Henry March. And the Dr. Clayton is a fictive kin, so we can actually link these to each other as fictive kin and get rid of that one. So this now I was doing. So all these all the link codes, basically I created Atlas relations for. Childhood friend, fictive kin working with, organization member, bias church, and so on. So I had all these relations available now for linking. So this translated previous network then looks like that. So I can see what the relations are for this actor. And then of course these networks become more denser and denser the more I start to link. So this is then a more extended next network of this actor Henry March. And what I then also started to do, I am starting to play with colors, because we have here some formal organizations, and we have the Marsh Couples Club, which is a private organization that's of course different from the Chamber of Commerce. So what we then can do is play with the colors in order to point out certain things. The other central actors were Austin and also Father Brown, and later you will see also I get rid of the color here in order to kind of mark all central actors with the kind of gray color, so to see it better. What we also start to see here already is the link to this other organization. So one of these social movement was very much central around this person Henry March, who was a black mayor, and then there was another organization called United Power. And we see here already that we have some linkages here via Daniel Rubin and the actor Daly. So now the qualitative story unfolds that can be told, so that what you saw in the writing. Now we see the organization United Power, and here the central actors Lovelace, Osmith, Daly, and Austin are now marked in grey, and we see all these other persons that are related to that organization. And we see this network, we see that's already very different, because all these people are not so much interrelated as in the Henry March network. They are just connected via the organization. What I marked here in light blue actually are 2 female group members, because that was especially pointed out in the qualitative interviews, that they played a critical role. That was mentioned by Smith, by Lovelace, and also by Daly, that in their organization the females were very important. With Henry March, well, we had the couples club, so the women played a more traditional role here. But here they were part of the grassroots organization, they were part in the demonstrations, and so on. And that was really pointed out also in the interviews. And here we also then, of course, via the same person, see the link over to the Henry March group. So here, continually working with the networks, you see that also colors change, because you tend to give things different meaning, you read more. So it's a constant working with the networks. It's not something you do once. It's an interaction between you, the data, and the network, and you start placing the nodes as the story unfolds, and you are variable in doing that. So it's not just something that software draws for you, it's something you can work with actively. And so what comes out here, what the social network analysis would call weak links, and the social network analysis program is kind of calculating those not weak links, bridge links for you. But it's very obvious here in the network, without any calculation that you need to make. I mean, now we have the United Power Network here on the other side, but this is only the Jesse Daly, Ruben Daniels type of link, and they are having some relation to this group, but not so much. Well, yes, Jesse Daly is also part of United Power, but this Daniel Ruben is not so much networked within all of this. And by the colors you also see that we have different types of relations going on with organizations, with private and more formal one with other organization members. So it's not just the organization itself and the members that we see here, it's a much more, in a double sense, colorful network, not by skin color, but by types, so to speak. Yeah, and then here we see the other side of it with United Power, having these 3 central actors. There's only the organizational board in here, my 2 female actors again, and the link via the church and Daniel Ruben, so our bridge link over to the other organization. And you see this looks very different from the Henry March network. So let's take a look at what the quantitative program would tell you. So this is multinet. And it also tells you, well, it seems to be 2 different groups, and there's hardly any linkage between them. And it gives you here the persons and how much distance is there between them, and also the more central actors that we already have seen in the other networks. And it gives you some distance ratios. Yeah, so we do get some numbers here. Then we also get this link relation type matrix, and basically it reflects what we have seen in the network already, that the Henry March network has a variety of links and also connections across and within. So here for the United Power Network we also get a distance ratio and a standard deviation again, and this is the picture that is drawn by the social network analysis program. So what we see in that network is that the members are more or less just centered around the organization. So that's also something we had discovered before without having a statistical program telling us about that. Here we see the bridge link table that was produced by the program. So nothing that we didn't know already from the qualitative analysis. And then to sum up, if we look at, see the qualitative story again, if we look at the two networks together, this is what could already done in ATLAS.ti to show the differences in the network. So the old boys connections on the right hand side and the very different organization on the left hand side. And you have to remember this was in the 1967, and there seemed to be a much more equal structure between men and women already in the grassroots group on the left hand side. And that is not something a statistical program would have given you as results. What Multinet can do, it gives us some numbers and confirm the relations that we already have discovered here, but it's not really anything new that comes out. But of course sometimes a quantitative confirmation is reassuring and maybe also necessary for some journals to publish your stuff. Well, I hope I've given you a little bit of an idea of how you could do qualitative social network analysis. And once the paper is out in about April, I posted then also on the blog, you can also read the steps that I'm describing in the paper in detail. Thanks for watching.